Alok. How are you
Morning,
doing?
Andy. How are you?
I'm well. Many thanks for joining.
Thank you for being you.
Hey, I have nothing to do with that. My parents I mean, they have more to do with it than I do.
I
Um,
mean, it's great to put a face with a famous voice. It's like Bugs Bunny or the movie premiere guy.
Thanks, Alok. How are you? How are you doing? You well?
I'm great. Thank you. I am. My mind, I mean, you're the perfect person to say this to, but my mind is literally going a
Yeah.
million miles a minute right now, just going on and off from topic to topic, and it's good to just take a minute and chill and talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, my family are well. I have some young kids. I'd love to get your advice on a few things there in just a moment. Before I jump into that, I know you spend your time between San Fran and New York, right?
I
Is it,
do, yeah.
where are you? Where are you now?
So currently I'm in San Francisco. So I'm like
Okay.
I'm right up the highway, right up the coast from you.
Okay. And how are things in San Fran? I haven't seen like a lot of news coming out of San Fran, which I'm hoping is a good thing.
Yeah, I seriously, I want to give our governor Newsom like a medal because they acted so quickly. And California is proof that sometimes a really small public health intervention like sheltering in place,
Yeah.
even if you do it a week earlier, can make such a huge difference. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't be another hotspot in the
Yeah.
way New York is, in Detroit and Louisiana and
Yeah.
Chicago, these places. But we acted early, so it's obviously there's a possibility for another surge, but it's incredible the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the amount of international travel coming in and out of, yeah, San Fran, out of LA. Like, I almost expected it to be following kind of New York quite closely in terms of just how bad it was going to get. I mean, hopefully it won't, but it seems like things are slowing down.
It does seem like we're kind of hitting that plateau, but
Yeah.
what everyone is worried about is we don't actually know how many people are still running around the community, not only in California, but all over the country,
Yeah.
who might still have, this coronavirus or might actually still be contagious and just not have symptoms. That's what we were talking about all the time with
Yeah.
this really frustrating asymptomatic spread. And,
Yeah.
the famous thing that I've been saying on every single news program every single day is that we just need a lot more testing. We
Yeah.
need to have a better understanding of how much it is in our community. And that's why for people who are so frustrated right now because their lives have been uprooted and they're stuck at home, they're not getting to, go through their normal routine. It's frustrating for them because they don't get to see how much difference they really are making just by staying home.
Yeah. Well, I think it's reassuring just to hear direct from a health professional that it is making a difference. Because one of the challenges, and I think one of the things that maybe won't be helping to alleviate the stress in people's mind is just the noise around this. I mean, outside of healthcare, it's become politicized in many, many different ways, different areas. That can't be helping you and your colleagues.
Oh, God, not at all. The way this is turned into a political weapon
Yeah.
and it's causing divisiveness, that just goes against everything we're trying to do. And it also blocks out a lot of the positive things that are happening. And I say that word loosely, but there's people out there right now who are making sure the 30 million children who are not being fed at school right now are getting meals. And
Yeah.
that's being blocked out by all this noise coming from the White House and mainstream media trying to counter what's being said.
Yeah.
Last night the headlines were breaking out that President Trump wants to halt funding for the WHO, and that all of a sudden gets the headlines. And I wish we could just focus on what we need to do together to get through this.
Yeah, I feel like not only is it exhausting for everybody, but also it's just counterproductive to what, at a time when everyone needs to come together to, genuinely, that there has not been another time where as the world needs to come together in a way, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah, people are comparing this to the public efforts during World War II.
Yeah.
And now you and I weren't alive then, but hearing stories about the way the public had to ration material for the
Yeah.
front lines and the way everyone had to come together, we haven't seen anything like that. I hope we never do ever again. But
Yeah.
this is a once in a multi-generation phenomenon we're going through.
What do you see on a daily basis? Presumably you're still in and out of the hospital every day?
I actually just left the hospital 90 minutes ago,
Okay.
and I got myself a 50-minute nap.
Are you able to, can you still use your apartment? Are you having to, I've heard of healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses having to stay in hotels and various kind of halfway houses. What's your situation?
My situation, so we're in San Francisco currently, my wife and I, and
Yeah,
as you probably could guess, our apartment's the size of a phone booth.
sure.
And so I'm very careful about, I got a little hallway out here,
Yeah.
about changing in the hallway without getting arrested for indecent exposure, and, throwing clothes directly into the washing machine, directly into the shower. And I got to take a step back. When we say things like social distance and physical distance and 6 feet away, make sure you stay away from your loved ones and all that, not everyone has the luxury of doing that.
Yeah.
I talk about a small apartment, but I'm still one of the lucky ones. If I go outside and go down the street, 2 streets, there's a row of tents of homeless. They don't have the option to physical distance at all. And so you have to make do with what your situation is. People working with, coronavirus patients or anyone who might be infected, we just have to take a little bit more of an extra step and almost assume that all of us could be contagious.
Yeah. How does that feel kind of mentally, emotionally going? Because you're going into an environment on a daily basis where presumably there are people who symptomatic and asymptomatic, but you're presumably exposing yourself to some degree every day.
Definitely, and I don't want to make a one-to-one comparison with what my colleagues right now in New York are going through.
Sure.
But over here, we have several people who have gotten sick, people who are questionable, and I have colleagues at one of my hospitals who are currently out right now because they've tested positive for coronavirus. Fortunately, all of them are doing relatively well. But when you hear that one of your colleagues tested positive, you don't necessarily know where it came from. And this is something I'm hearing from people all over the country. And they're saying, I tested positive. I did everything right.
Yeah.
And where the hell did this come from? And that just goes to show you that it's spreading around, and we've almost lost the ability to not almost, we've lost the ability to contain it.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that ship has sailed and now it's let's deal with what we've got, right?
The ship is gone. The ship is in the Arctic Ocean somewhere. It's gone.
Yeah. What about working? So how much anxiety you see? You still work in pediatrics? Is that your primary kind of focus?
It is, yeah. So what I do is I am a pediatric hospitalist. So I only take care of hospitalized children.
Okay.
And so that is age premature to sometimes kids in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And it really is a roller coaster of a job.
Yeah.
Because, as you can probably imagine, we'll see kids who might be in and out versus kids who have terminal illness or are dying. You kind of see the full spectrum. It's a really crazy look into raw human emotion and the many things that can happen to the human body. Lots of ups and downs.
What's it like on the patient side, right? So for children, teenagers, young adults under your care, how are you seeing them respond sort of emotionally, mentally to the situation? Because there must be a huge amount of fear. I have friends at the moment who are pregnant and who are really fearful of going into hospital to deliver. Other people who need sort of treatment of various kinds, whether it's cancer and chemo, and are fearful of going in. What are you seeing in your patients?
So you kind of nailed it. There's people who are avoiding healthcare right now by all means. And if they don't need to actually be in a hospital or an ER and urgent care, please don't go right now.
Right.
But other people have to still go. And they're freaked out about it. The other day we had to tell a parent that she couldn't be with her infant in the hospital because she had cold symptoms. And I don't know if those cold symptoms are coronavirus or not. She has a test that's still pending.
Yeah.
And so, to be able to tell someone like you can't actually stay with your infant son in the hospital.
Yeah.
That position, we've never been in that position before. But I'll tell you what's really fascinating. Kids are awesome. kids are this like raw lens into, I mean, you know, kids have this raw opinion about things. And so I've had kids who think that this was made in a lab. I have kids who think this is made up. This is kids aged like 7 through 18. And it all depends on where they're getting the information from, what they're hearing on the playground, what they're seeing on the internet. And I even have some kids who are super enlightened. I got to tell you this quote. This quote is just, it just resonates with me. We have a 7-year-old kid, a cancer patient, you know, and because of where he is in his cancer treatment, he's really had to be isolated from the outside world for a large portion of time. 2 weeks ago, he says, people have to shelter in place for 3 weeks and they're whining about it. What's the big deal? I've been in isolation for 2 years. This kid's 7. I was like, that's the most enlightened thing I've ever heard somebody say. And he put things into perspective in a really cool way.
Yeah. And look, it's always so relative, right? I think, you know, on any, we were chatting about this yesterday, I think on any given day, you walk out the front door and it's so easy to be inside our own sort of bubble, our own lives, and even maybe the lives of the people immediately around us who are living so differently from people perhaps a few blocks away, in another city, and in another country who may have gone through years and years of conflict. And, and for them, this is something, okay, this is an invisible kind of thing, but at the same time, by comparison, they're seeing this as something, you know, kind of less serious, perhaps.
And if there's anything I hope productive that comes from this, it's the fact that we're going to shine a light on all the disparity and all the inequity right now, because you're 100% right. There are people who are enjoying homeschooling their kids right now.
Yeah.
And they have tech jobs where they can work remotely and they're doing just fine. And other people who are living in a shelter, a storage shelter, or people who absolutely cannot handle this right now, or, you know, people who are living with 6 people in an apartment. You know, we often say, you'll hear everyone on the news say, if you have symptoms, call your doctor. But what if you're one of the 55 million underinsured people and you can't call a doctor?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's brutal. And I think, I don't know, the way it's almost highlighted, that disparity, right? It's always there. It's always with us, but it's definitely shone a light on it in a way. It's very rare that everybody is exposed to the same thing or potentially the same thing at the same time. So normally we're able to kind of put it into different boxes and try and make sense of it, but it just doesn't make any sense in this light, right?
That's fascinating. And Andy, I apologize that this is turning into a PSA. But,
no.
You know, when you have everyone exposed to the exact same condition, you really start to see the definition of inequity versus inequality. Yeah. Because, you know, when we say inequality, that almost has this assumption that there needs to be an equal measure for every person, for every neighborhood. And right now, if you were to take an affluent neighborhood in Southern California and you compare it with a predominantly minority, you know, neighborhood in Detroit or Chicago, there are completely different outcomes. Yeah. It's horribly unfair. And, you know, I hope right now people are finally waking up and saying, oh my gosh, you know, like this is right underneath our feet. This is happening in the United States. Like, we have to be better about this.
Yeah. And I always feel, just for anyone who's tuning in with us today, I feel like this is always a really tricky balance, because there's also, obviously suffering is relative, and it's relative to the way that we have lived our life up until this point and the environment in which we're kind of in. And so equally, that I've heard from some people, they're starting to feel really kind of guilty. They know that other people are suffering more, and they almost feel like their suffering is being sort of invalidated in some way. And I always feel like, look, we have the mind that we have. We experience the feelings we have. The nervous system isn't able to recognize what somebody in another city does or doesn't have. So the stress that we feel is real, regardless of whether something different is happening in someone else's life. So we still have to kind of work with that stress in our own life. But I think at the same time, as you say, it's really important to recognize that there is an inequity, and that perhaps we could come out, I hope we could come out the back of this kind of with a great acknowledgement of that, and perhaps maybe even some changes.
Yeah. And I'm so curious to ask you how you cope with kind of, if you have those feelings of guilt, because I think that's something everyone struggles with. I struggle with it daily when you feel guilty, and then you feel guilty about feeling guilty, and you don't let yourself actually take a moment to appreciate your own situation because you're constantly saying like, this is unfair. Why do I have this opportunity? You know, the other day at the hospital, somebody was really nice enough, a local restaurant, to deliver us food. And I was honored. I was like, wow,
Nice.
they actually, you know, thank you, hospital workers. But I felt so guilty while I was eating food because I can afford to go and buy food right now.
Yeah.
But somebody was still giving us a food donation when I know there are so many people right now who literally don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
And it was this kind of the feeling of guilt kind of overwhelmed me. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I think we did a thing actually a while back on sort of guilt and regret. And I was telling a story how when I was living in the monastery, as I used to train as a monk, we were allowed 1 minute on regret. So if we felt guilty about something, if we regret something, we were only allowed to kind of dwell on it or engage in it for a minute. After a minute, the deal was you kind of had to let it go. So it wasn't to negate it. It wasn't to try and push it away. It's like, okay, you give it its space. It needs to come up. It's arisen in the mind. But the thinking more about it doesn't necessarily kind of change it. But in letting it go, we free up the space to either learn from it or to be proactive in a way that we can kind of change the behavior that we might have felt guilty about or regretted in the past. So I kind of feel like right now, if I don't spend a lot of time thinking about feeling guilty, of course, I regularly am aware of just how fortunate we are. But in those moments, I choose, rather than to kind of feel guilty about it, I will choose to go and do something positive about it. Because I can spend my time either engaging in something which I know will take me down a rabbit hole in my mind and and probably not help the way I feel, or I can take that energy and that time and that resource and put it into something positive. Maybe it's calling up something as simple as calling up a friend and kind of finding out how they're doing. Maybe it's going online looking kind of where we can be more useful in society. Maybe it's finding a neighbor who can't get out to the shops and kind of dropping some food off. I kind of feel like all of us, like there is an opportunity throughout this sort of crisis to see what resources we have. And I don't just mean financially, I mean whether it's in time, whether it's in energy, mentally, emotionally, like what resources have we got that others don't have, and how can we best share those with the people around us?
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. You know, we always say, you know, if people can donate, if you have the means to donate, great. If you don't have the means to donate, a simple phone call, checking in on somebody, seeing if you can run an errand for someone. Everyone has something they can contribute.
Yeah.
And even if you have nothing, you can contribute. And you're saying, hey, I've tried everything. Even you staying home.
Yeah.
And making a point to commit to that is helping all your neighbors. I think that is unifying and empowering. We're all little public health warriors right now.
Absolutely. Do you know, and you'll have seen this as well. I haven't seen so much around over here, but I know back in England, I've been watching sort of videos in other countries where people have been forced to stay at home. A lot of them feel kind of powerless, like they can't really do anything to help. And yet every Saturday night they've been coming out and clapping all the doctors and nurses around the country. They've been banging saucepans and stuff. It's really emotional. Yeah. So what? Like, I don't know how that feels to be on the receiving end, but it feels like something is so simple and yet so meaningful and powerful. I don't know. I feel like that's a really beautiful way of people showing.
Yeah. Even when people message me on Instagram all the time saying, where can I donate masks to?
Yeah.
Or hey, just tell me how I can donate money to get PPE to people in New York, for example. And that's amazing. Yeah. And we've never had such an outpouring of people who want to support the effort. Like it feels very unifying in a twisted, bittersweet, dystopian future kind of way.
Yeah. Hey, look, just to say as well, Alok, there's loads of love here for you coming up on the screen, and lots of people just saying how this is making them feel better at staying at home, and kind of it gives them a sense of sort of purpose. So, you know, just to
that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's
because
really
if I'm coming in between, you know, a famous actress and supermodel and a former member of One Direction, we have to bring something unique here. I got to step it up. I mean, I'm not going to sing, and I'm not nearly as talented as Carly Claus. So if we're relatable and we're empowering your audience, power to us.
There's a lot of people clearly very happy to see you here today. Before we're going to do a little exercise, if that's okay with you in a minute. I'd love to ask you about your, how do you look after, so aside from this, pre-corona and everything else, how do you look after, given, you know, the description you gave just now of the type of patients that you look after, and all the potential implications and outcomes of those different disease states. How do you look after your mental health? How do you stay sane in what is one of, unquestionably, the most challenging work environments?
Yeah, it's good because it doesn't matter if I'm actually working as a doctor or if I'm going on live television. I have to be able to shift my focus like that. There is no downtime.
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer your question by telling you how I initially got into meditation. It's a quick story.
Yeah.
But basically, my everything when it comes to my own escape, if you will, comes down to martial arts. So when I was young and when I was about 10 years old and I first started reading a lot about Kung Fu and Shaolin Kung Fu, I read this story about how Shaolin monks used to stand in a wide horse stance. And so for anyone out there who doesn't know Shaolin Kung Fu, that's like a wide squat position. And they would stand in a horse stance and they would light a candle. And they would focus on the flame in the candle and they wouldn't move until the candle went out. It was about an hour. And I was like, oh my God, I can do that. And so I tried it and I lasted for about 45 seconds. And so the next time I did it, I put on, this is a true story, I put on an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, literally my favorite show. And I focused on the show for 22 minutes and I held a horse stance. I was 11 years old. And it was at that moment I realized that if you put yourself into something and you're able to focus and dedicate yourself to this one art, it doesn't matter if it's juggling like you, sir, or if it's martial arts, or if it's drawing, or if it's painting, or whatever it is. If you give yourself that time to kind of remove the outside world, it does, you know, it just does wonders to your peace. So for me, it's martial arts. That was a long answer to your question.
No, it was, do you still do it? Do you still do any martial arts?
Every day.
You do, yeah.
Every single day. It doesn't matter if I'm in my call room in the hospital. I mean, I know you have a little bit of a circus background too, but it doesn't matter if I'm doing, you know, balancing acts, or if I'm doing handstands, or if I'm just throwing kicks, you know, in the corner somewhere, just anything where it requires me to just have to focus on what I'm doing.
If my kids ever need a doctor, they're coming to see you. I want a doctor doing handstands in the corner of the room. That's yeah.
Oh, done. Even if they want a virtual visit, we can do it.
Great. That'd be nice. Well, look, one of the things we've been doing, Alok, is you know, every day is just coming together, just to provide, you know, folks with an opportunity to pause, and just a reminder, I think. As a lot of us have gone into these situations where we're out of schedule, where we're out of routine, it's really easy to let go of self-care. It's really easy to let things like meditation and exercise and healthy eating and healthy sleep routines to sort of fade away. So it's an opportunity for folks to just pause. We're going to do just a very short exercise. Love you to stay and join. You're welcome to stay on camera, you're welcome to go off, you're welcome to lie down, go elsewhere in your room. For anyone tuning in at home, as always, you can lie down or sit down. And quite a few of you have been asking for that exercise that we did last week. So Alok, it was an exercise where we focus on the breath, but at the same time we focus on somebody who we really love, someone we really care about. It might even be sort of someone who we don't know so well. Maybe it's like a healthcare worker we know, but someone who we think could do with more support. And at the same time as focusing on our breath, we visualize that person kind of looking happier, looking healthier, looking well. We send them our love, our support. And it's just, it leaves normally a feeling of not only being calmer, clearer in our own mind, but more connected with the people that we're kind of separated from right now. So if that sounds okay with you.
I'm gonna think about Shakira.
No, are you close?
I'm gonna think about I'm just kidding. I'll think about. I will pick someone.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to say. You don't have to say who it is. So again, if you're tuning in at home, as always, the most important thing is just to make yourself comfortable. You don't have to sit in any special way, and you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed, whichever you prefer. So we're going to start in the usual way. So without moving the eyes around, just a soft focus with the eyes, so you can see all the colors and sort of shapes in the space around you, but there's not a specific focus on any one thing. And just maintaining that soft focus, we're going to take a big deep breath, breathing in through the nose. And as you breathe out through the mouth, if you want to, just gently closing the eyes and just feeling the weight of the body sink down. Just take a moment to pause, to enjoy the feeling of having stopped. Just allowing the body to slow down, allowing any thoughts to come and go. And as you sit there, just checking in with the body as always, notice how the body feels today. And notice how the body's breathing. So as always, start in a very general way. Just which part of the body you feel that rising and falling sensation. Doesn't matter whether it's the chest, the diaphragm, the stomach. If you can't feel anything, just gently placing your hand on the stomach. Just feeling that rising and falling movement. So this is our base, our anchor. Whenever we lose our way, whenever we realize the mind's wandered off, just gently coming back to this rhythm, this feeling of the breath. And just for 10 breaths, we're just going to picture someone who we care about, maybe who we're separated from right now. We're going to picture them, visualize them looking relaxed, at ease, in a place you know they'd enjoy. And as you follow the breath, with every out breath, just seeing that person looking a little happier, a little more at ease, perhaps healthier. You might see a smile begin to appear on their face. So we're just following the natural rhythm of the breath. Aware of the inhalation, then as we exhale, just seeing that person looking increasingly comfortable and at ease. Just a couple more breaths. And then just letting go of that image, letting go of any focus on the breath, and just gently bringing the attention back into the body, back to that feeling of weight against the seat, on the floor, any sounds around you, and whenever you're ready, you can just gently open the eyes again. Welcome back.
I feel like Jimmy Fallon felt when he opened his eyes and was like, that was great.
Good. Well, look, one of my hopes is from this, Alec, is that, you know, I think there's still this idea that in order to meditate, we have to do it for a long time. In order to get the benefits, we have to do it for a long time. And I think all of us, even if we only sit for a minute or two, we feel different afterwards. And it's just a reminder how important it is to take time out for ourselves, not just for ourselves, but for the folks around us as well. So if nothing else, I hope that is, for everyone tuning in today, I hope that's a useful reminder.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm like still in this like daze right now. You are the preeminent modern guru of meditation, and I think the beauty is so many scientists out there are now talking about, how much meditation can help our stress and can actually optimize your immune system more than anything that you might see for sale on Instagram. Sometimes you just need to take a step back. And, we talk about the fight or flight response, our sympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
and we so much ignore our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. And you, sir, are optimizing immune systems all over the planet. I don't even know if you realize that. I'm sure you did.
I don't think of it in that way, but I'm really, it's the nicest thing, kind of. I think everyone in the team, the most important thing to say is it's a big team effort, and none of this happens without the team. But it's the nicest thing, kind of meeting folks, whether it's virtually, online, or out in the street, and just hearing stories of how much meditation has changed their life in ways that genuinely, and I say this as someone who teaches meditation, ways that I could never have imagined. I really, when I left the monastery, I never thought that so little meditation, and I say this in no disrespect to the 10 minutes a day or whatever kind of we might be doing, but by comparison, relative to what we were doing in the monastery, I never thought that amount of meditation would make that big a difference in people's lives. And when we look at the science now and see that it's more about frequency than duration, and when I hear the stories of how it's changed people's lives, I feel like the luckiest person to even be doing this. So yeah, thanks for using the app, and thank you to everyone out there who uses the app.
There's truth behind the phrase meditation as medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Alok, I think I say this on behalf of everybody here today. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, everything your colleagues are doing around the country, around the world. I really, really hope that, I think there's always a lot of love and respect for healthcare professionals, but I'm seeing it more now than I've ever seen it before. I'm hearing it more than ever before, and I hope that continues long after Corona.
I absolutely agree with you.
You guys deserve it.
I hope the unity that we're feeling right now never leaves.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time today, man. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing all the rest of you back here tomorrow for Take 10.
Andy, thank you.
Thanks, Alec. Thank you
Every time I hear your voice now, I'm going to feel like we're friends.
Nice. We are. All right, man. Take care.
Take care. Stay safe. Guys. Tell your kids Dr. Patel says high five.
I will do. We'll set up that appointment.
Done. Handstands.
Okay, done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.